Hello, viewers. Welcome to Write-Tukubuli Author Showcase. And today it is my pleasure to have one of our longtime writers, Alick Lazare, who we're interviewing today. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his writing journey. And we're going to have a nice chat with him. So, Alick Lazare, one of our great Dominican writers. So Alick, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. Well, let's jump straight in. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing journey? Did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. And I'm so happy that we have brought back the whole idea of a literary festival, even if we have to do it virtually. And doing it virtually has so many advantages too, that more people can join in at their pleasure, at their comfort, and we can reach so many more people than we used to in the past. Um, I began in my youth. I was an avid reader. I would seek all copies of any interesting copy of literature that I could find, whether it's newspapers or books, and I would read. It was like a habit to me. I couldn't get rid of. Um, and when I was of age that I could begin to subscribe to the public library, I began to explore many of the books that they had on hand. In fact, I was such a regular customer that I enjoyed this special privilege of being able to take out more than one book at a time. I think that habit of reading gave me a love of words and expressions and looking at characters and kind of using my own imagination to put them in diverse situations. Um, and of course, it helped build up my vocabulary quite a bit. Uh, so I began to explore expressing myself in various ways at school. I think I excelled in literature.
Okay.
That was one of my strong subjects. I suspect that in many of my essays, my schoolmaster would not give me full marks, so he would give me a point less than 10 or less than 100. But I continued with that interest, and at a very young age, I started exploring, looking at writing first short stories, and later on, I began to write plays. I
Okay.
remember that we were very keen on even past secondary school. We were keen on putting out developing theater, and we formed a small group that we could work with, and I would write many of the scripts that would perform at various events. For instance, when the public civil services to have their week celebration, we would put out small skits, and I would write the scripts for them, and would act them out.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that was a good start. That's long before I began to even think of writing a challenging thing like a novel. But I began writing short stories at an early age, looking at the characters around me on the streets, in the yards, and trying to see whether I could portray them on paper. in that I was very inspired by the works that I began to read by West Indian writers.
Okay.
Reading um, the classics put you in another world that you felt was far beyond you. But when I discovered people like Selvan and Naipaul, Vic Reed, and many of the early Caribbean writers, that gave me inspiration to use their language. And I began to put out many more short stories. So that was the beginning.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And I just wondered, besides reading and experimenting and school, were there any other ways that you started to learn the craft of writing? Did you go on any workshops or anything like that? Did you have any mentors at all?
Well, as far as the bookshops are concerned, I was a constant customer.
Yeah.
Even with my small salary when I was a clerk, I would, on a weekly basis, on the bookshops. As you can see at my back, I've had quite a collection of books over the years because I would pick up anything I thought of interest um, and read. That was books were my constant companions.
Okay,
And
but did you go on any courses, writing courses or?
not really, not formal.
Okay,
I never did any formal writing courses, but
okay,
by
wow.
constant practice,
Yes,
and as I said, reading in language that was so familiar, that brought me so much at home with the characters that I felt I could emulate them. I began by actually copying the styles of Selvan and the other Caribbean writers, trying to emulate them, trying to do what they were doing. Um, until I found my own style, until we began to look around you and identify clearly with your environment, and you began to put out your own work and in your own words, in your own style. But it was good practice for me to observe what the successful writers at the time they were distant, and most of them were Caribbean people, but they
yeah,
lived overseas. They lived in the UK, or they lived in Canada, or they lived in the US.
yeah.
But
That's one of the
yet
things I will ask. Yeah, yeah,
we could identify with them.
yeah. For those who don't know, would you mind just saying what some of the books that you've published are? If you wouldn't mind just giving the list of your publications for those who aren't aware.
My first well publication outside of Dominica was my book of poems, Nature Island
Okay,
Verses,
okay.
which I published. I self-published with one of the print-on-demand publishers. Uh,
Wow, they had print on demand even back then.
yeah, even back then, that was in 2001, and I was pretty proud of it. It was an attractive cover, very well, very well done, and to some extent it was successful. But poetry is not a very
Yeah.
good seller,
Yep, yep.
and I may have overreached myself in trying to think that the readership in Dominica would be large enough to take on all the books that I ordered at the time. I still have copies
How,
of the
how many
original.
did how many did you print?
I must have printed about maybe 300 to 500 or something like that.
Okay, well, audience, Alex still has copies of those that book, his first book of poetry, if you want to purchase a copy. So that's great. So carry on after that, after the poetry.
After that, I began looking at. I didn't consciously decide on writing a novel. My interest at the time kind of was drawn towards ex- researching writings on the Kalinago and also on the runaway slaves. I came across several books by different writers on the subject, and it led me to do a lot more research, even on the internet. And the more I dug in, is the more fascinated I was by what came out of of that kind of research.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I found was that my reading of the studies that were made um, led me to think that what we learned ourselves from the reports that came out from the colonial office,
Yes.
um, what I myself read from papers that I came across in our own archives, um, did not really tell the full story.
That is so interesting.
And I felt that, hey, I should really study a little more on that and come out with something that reflected the voices of those people, the voices of the Kalinago, the voices of the runaway slave. Um, and so I began to delve deeper and deeper, and I felt constrained to come out with a full novel because I had put together so much material that I had notes, bundles of notes
Okay.
on both subjects. Um, and I was able to construct um, a
So which were the two novels? Which were the novels that came out of that research?
well, Kalinago Blood was the first.
Ah, that came first.
Yeah, that came first. And I I was conscious that what I was looking at was
Mm-hmm.
different from what we normally
Yep.
would read from the official papers that we were accustomed
Yes.
to, or even from
Yes.
the school books that we had to study at elementary school. Like, for instance, you were told all along that the Kalinago were man-eaters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more I read on it, even from people like Father um,
Is it Father Breton? Father?
Breton, Father
Yeah.
Breton,
Mm-hmm.
even from there, I found that they did not support that kind of thing at all.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, their version of the experience with the Kalinago, was that they were very generous, very
Yeah.
hospitable.
Mm-hmm.
That led me to it stirred me more to come out with what I thought would have been a clearer picture
Mm-hmm.
of the Kalinago. And the
Yes.
same happened with my delving into the um, the runaway slaves.
Yeah. The enslaved peoples. Yeah.
Some time ago I came across an essay by Chimamanda Adichie.
Adichie.
Chimamanda
Yeah.
Adichie.
Mm-hmm.
where she said, she pointed to the danger of the single story.
Yes, I love that motto. That's one of my mottos. Yes, we really need nuanced conversations and
Yeah.
stories. Yes.
So I took that as my theme. I said, hey, she was so right in what she was saying that the people who are telling your story are the same people who either enslaved you
Yes.
or dispossessed you of your land and so on.
Of your
Um,
language. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, all they were
Yeah.
trying to do was to justify the acts that they committed.
That's right. So that led, so after Kalinago Blood came, but was
After
it?
Kalinago Blood, I went in to do further research on the slavery in Dominica,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the runaway slaves
Yeah. The Maroons.
and the Maroons. And I came across extensive papers on Bala and Jacko and all the other chiefs. And I was abhorred at what was being said about them, the way they were regarded. Um, uh, and my thought was that these were people who were fighting for their freedom.
Freedom fighters, indeed. And that part of our history was never really talked about. The fact that there were people who, enslaved people who opposed and who fought.
Yeah,
The uprisings weren't really talked about, right?
yeah. Um, so we had these the philosophers coming out of France and like Rousseau and many others who spoke about the freedom for the individual, human rights,
Mm-hmm.
and so on.
Yeah.
Um, they leaned somewhat sympathetically towards the slaves, but
Mm-hmm.
there was not much opposition to the whole policy of
Yes.
slavery in the Caribbean because they all recognized that their own economies were at risk if the slaves were to be set free. Um,
Yes.
uh, and even with people like Clarkson in Britain, with
Mm-hmm.
all the posturing about um, the condition of, they spoke of the condition of slaves, not so much the act of slavery. In the end, I think it was our own intellectuals like Eric Williams who pointed out
Yes.
that that freedom came not because of any moral issue, but because of economics.
Yes, exactly. And not to forget, especially in Dominica, I think things were made very difficult for the colonizers, not only the environment, but I think
Yeah.
even with, the uprisings. So can you remember what year you published Farcel?
Parcel, I think I did in 2006.
206, okay.
Uh,
So
with a
what
while.
came after
I did,
Farcel?
I'm getting them mixed up. I may have done Kalinago in 2006 and Parcel in 2013 or something like that.
Ah, right. So maybe Farcel was first and then came Kalinago Blood. Have there been any more after, besides Kalinago Blood and Farcel? Did you have
After
any other?
Parcel, there was a long period of inactivity until
Okay.
it struck me that we should, I, from my own experience,
Mm-hmm.
writing books and trying to get them distributed, trying to get them noticed, I
Yep.
thought that the people were not very knowledgeable about what came out of Dominica's literary
Yep.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there- and my connection, my membership in groups like Write-Tukubuli groups and so on, led me to think that, hey, there are so many people with talent who are not being heard.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I began to look at more and more, gather information on some of the new writers. And I went back and revisited some of the older ones like Jean Rees and Orphrey and Ed Scobie. Um, and I thought we should really put out something that highlighted the works
Mm-hmm.
of many of those writers. So I went about putting together a whole index of writers. And from there, the most difficult task was to get to the older ones
Yeah.
or their families to see if I could get their permission to put out extracts from their work. I had to go and find addresses of people way out
Wow.
in various parts of England, Essex, and so on, and write them to see whether they
To get
would
their
give
permission. Yeah.
permission for me to. I wasn't successful in every case. The newer writers were quite simple that I could telephone or send emails
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
get their permissions. But those people living overseas, it was quite a challenge to be
Well
able to
done for that.
trace them where they were and get their permission to use parts of the work. I still regret that I was not able, for instance, to get in touch with somebody like Daniel Corderon, who was one of the um, young, um, vibrant, though controversial writers in the 60s. I
Wow.
was able to trace him way out in Canada, but as soon as I thought I got hold of him, I was told that he had migrated to England.
Oh no.
And
I
I
mean,
could I couldn't get any, despite all my efforts, I couldn't get any trace of him.
well,
So
somebody else will have to follow up that trail for you then, because
yeah,
that anthology is such an important record. It's such an important record of Dominican writers, together with Irvin Andre's Distant Voices.
right.
So yeah, that is such a great endeavor that you took. Well, did you have any surprises doing when you did that piece of work, the anthology of literary work by Dominican writers? Was there anything that really surprised you?
Well, my surprise was the vast number of young writers who are there.
Hmm. Yeah,
I was amazed when I came up with a figure of 246 or so. I could only do 44 of them.
yeah. Hmm.
And in my introduction, I said somebody else would have to pick up all the
Yeah,
others
take up that challenge. Yeah, yeah.
and do
We're
the
trying
rest.
to maintain a record, yes, of all the books written by Dominicans. So,
But
I mean,
the number, well, that was amazing. It really surprised me when I came up with that
okay.
246 um,
Wow.
of people who are there who have written various pieces. Um, and I, uh, their works are there. It's a matter of getting to them and putting the pieces together and
Yeah,
coming up with a few more volumes of the same kind.
yeah. So, was that your last published book? Are you working on anything at the moment, or
No, that's my
that
last
you that's
published
so
book.
you're not planning to write anything else?
I'm not planning to write. Well, I have I have ideas of things that can be done. For instance, there's so much left undone.
Yeah,
Um, we have
indeed.
we have, for instance, looked at the slavery period
Hmm.
um, up to about 1934, 1834. So, sorry, and we have the new writers who are picked up some of the later periods from
Mm-hmm.
the 50s, 60s, and so on, from the 40s onwards. But there's a huge gap in the 80s
Yes, yeah. The
where
turbulent
you had,
times as well. Yeah.
yeah, where you had the emerging group of black people and the mulattoes who were educated enough that they could begin to express themselves and vie for position in the society. They had to fight
Mm-hmm.
for it, but they struggled to to emerge as an identifiable group
Yeah.
in politics or in literature or whatever. Um, could itself form stories, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's lots of work to be done for sure. Yeah.
that period is not covered, and there is so much material available, I'm sure, in the archives that that would be a useful period to study and come up with a picture of what transpired in those times. Because during that period was the
Mm-hmm.
formation of what turned out to be the more vibrant group of agitators, if you like, of the 40s and 50s, 60s, and 70s up to independence.
Yeah.
There were people who were struggling against the old colonial period,
Yeah. Yeah.
against the class distinction that there
Mm-hmm.
was, you know. And I thought that was a period that would be of great interest to
Yeah.
writers in Dominica.
Because
But
I always say, you really have to understand the past to understand the present, right? It's so important. It really explains. So
yeah,
let me just ask you, what was the response like? I mean, you were really ahead of your time writing about these things because not many people were. So what was the response like, locally and regionally and even internationally to your books like Farsal and Kalinago Blood? Do you get much feedback from locally and wider afield?
when the books first came up, my short stories, you get um, there wasn't much that was being produced at the time.
Mm-hmm.
People, out of curiosity, would really go into it, and some of them would be excited that was being done, and you got comments from various people, you know, even praise from them for having attempted that kind of thing, you know. Local person getting involved in producing short stories. It wasn't very common at the time. So it drew some attention. But by and large, I don't think we have quite a great readership in Dominica,
Mm-hmm.
especially now. I think the younger generation are drawn into um, the more exciting technology that we have, where they can get all their excitement on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and all of that
Yeah.
on their cell phones. So I don't think there's much. There's but that's my impression that
Mm-hmm.
people are that excited about books anymore.
Okay. Are any of your books taught in schools? Do any schools in Dominica teach your books or have your books, things like that at all?
Well, not really, and I didn't attempt to spread them because I realized that um, mm, the two novels, for instance, are more
Mm-hmm.
for adult readership.
Okay, I see.
So I didn't. I made copies available to the library, so they
Yeah.
would be. they would be out in the village libraries as well as in the central library, but
Okay.
not in schools.
Okay. And how did you go about publishing? I know you mentioned like your short stories and your first book of poetry you self-published. How did you go about? Did you have a publisher for Kalinago Blood and Fastal and the anthology, or were those self-published as well?
We are very fortunate now to have, I think, 4 publishing houses on our doorstep. You have Tonkasi Press, you have Papillot Press,
Mm-hmm.
you have Emmanuel Press, and you have
Mm-hmm.
River Ridge Press. So
Okay.
these things are there now that young writers can find an outlet for some of the works that they do if they are good enough to write full novels,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or collections of stories, or anthologies of poems. Um, but when I started, there was not much of that around, even
Yeah.
a Caribbean basis. I
Mm-hmm.
remember attempting to get through to Ian Randall, for instance, and I didn't get much encouragement. I mean,
No.
um, and the more I explored the book market, the more I realized we were at a disadvantage. For one thing, you have to understand this steps, processes that
Mm-hmm.
we go through to be really successful.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to penetrate the market, you ought to you the first step should be to find, if you want to go to the bigger market, I'm not talking of just the Caribbean market,
Mm-hmm.
ought to find an agent.
All right.
To find an agent is quite challenging in itself. And then from an agent, you have to go through to a publisher. And it's a long process.
Yeah.
Um, Getting through with your editors and people like that. I was kind of intimidated when I began to understand what was involved. And so I
Yeah.
found an easier way to
Okay.
get my book published by going to a print on demand publisher. I must
Okay.
say, when I first approached um, the uh, my first publisher, iUniverse.com.
Oh, okay. They were one
Yeah.
of the initial ones back when did they used to call it like Vanity Press? Is it that when they used to call?
Well, I only knew them as iUniverse. I found though
Okay.
that dealing with them was very, very friendly,
Okay.
um, because they put you through the steps of getting the book published. You have to pay for them, of course,
Right. Okay.
um, but they do the semblance of the routine of publishing. They give you an editor. Um, in retrospect, the editing was not very thorough. I don't think
I
they
was
did
going to
enough.
ask, yeah, because especially with your type of content, I was going to ask because your content would be so Caribbean focused and what we were saying, the
Yeah.
danger of single stories. How did you find the editing process?
Well, the editing process was quite friendly, I thought, but it was very light. I must say, very light
Okay,
editing, more line editing than structural editing.
I
Um,
see.
so you didn't get much critique of um, your paragraphing or your sentence structure, and and that kind of thing, or even the the okay, all right, all right. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So it was quite light. You didn't get the kind of in-depth structural overview type editing that you would have hoped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not the kind that a traditional publisher would give.
Okay.
But it was enough to present a fairly respectable volume
Okay.
without spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes and that kind of thing.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed reading all of them. So yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, go on. Sorry. Yes.
With them, they do give you a good publication in terms of the quality of the printing, binding, and that sort of thing. But that's about the end of it, you know. They will not do much in terms of promotion.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
For distribution. So you find yourself virtually stranded with your books, except an appearance on Amazon.com.
Wow. So all the marketing and the distribution is then left down to you as an individual. And being in Dominica, that's an added challenge, right? How do you get books? How do you get books to other people? Yeah.
Yeah, the market here is small, and I must say that I was able to get a lot of assistance from people like Jay's, Paperbacks Bookstore, even jewelers at the airport. They were quite willing to accept my books on consignment, and they did well, considering selling those books. I was able to get some books out to parts of the region, mainly St. Lucia and St. Vincent. But that's about as far as it went.
And that's just using your own personal contacts that you'd have to do that. Yeah. Hopefully, one of the things during the festival week, one of the things I hope viewers can join in on is we're going to have a discussion about, what can we do about improving the distribution and readership of, books by our local writers. So hopefully we can get people's viewpoints and feedback on that. So let me ask you, over such a long career, and you obviously, the writing, you had a different job, you had a day job all during that time. Did you have a strict writing routine when you were working? Is there something you can share as part of your writing routine that you did on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, I didn't really give myself a schedule or timetable as some form of discipline. But when you begin working on a book, you get so drawn into it that it pulls you. Every moment that you have, you go back to it. And I thought at one time that I could give myself certain targets, writing, let's say, 10,000 words a day. It was tremendous to attempt that, but actually you don't keep to that. You can't keep to that.
Yeah, especially when you have a job. Yeah.
Yeah, but not only that, but when you get to a point in your story where you have to think out the next step, the next approach, especially where you get to the point of conflict, or you get to the point where you have to look at your characters and how they interact. you do have to pause sometimes and think it over carefully
Okay.
so that you don't get contradictions, you know,
Right.
in the description of the stories of the in the flow of the story itself, or in describing the character of your protagonist or your antagonist or whatever it is. Sometimes when you go back and read parts of your story, you find contradictions
Okay.
in the character's behavior, and you have to go back and fix that up, you know.
Okay.
So you do have times when you might get stuck, and you have to think it out carefully before you proceed.
Okay, so I think you're saying, it's important not to rush through, even if you have these 10,000 word deadlines. It's important to always go back and review what you've written. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So let me ask you, have there been like key moments that stick out during your writing life for you? Key high moments or key not so high moments on your writing journey that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Well, my key moments was when you complete your work and see it come off the press. That gives you a real joy to hold that new book in your hand. But in all of it, I've had some low moments. I'm not so much in the process of writing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the most difficult part of the business of writing is getting published,
Mm-hmm.
getting a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely frustrating sometimes. Um, for instance, having done Parcel and Kalinago Blood,
Mm-hmm.
after years of experience with them on the market, I thought I could improve
Mm-hmm.
the marketing of the book, the circulation of the book, by looking for another publisher. And I was able, through a friend of mine, through Christy Miller, really, who
Mm-hmm.
does River Ridge Press, to
Mm-hmm.
identify a new and small independent publisher that I thought looked vibrant enough. They looked, when I researched them, they
Mm-hmm.
looked like they were full of energy
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of people that you could um, take a chance with, you could deal with. So I sent my book to them and they promptly accepted it. Um, and we went on to the editing process. There was no question of fees involved. They were normal, traditional publishers. And they brought
Okay.
it up
Wait.
to the point of release. The book got to the point of release when the whole business collapsed.
Oh no, that's so
I
terrible.
mean,
So you have the you have the revised version, and then it didn't manage to hit a publication.
no, it fell just short of publication release. They wanted to put it off in the spring of last year, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and they just collapsed.
Oh,
And
that's such a shame.
you had to start all over again. So what I've decided to do with those books, incidentally, they had accepted both Parcel and Kalinago
Naga blood.
for
Okay.
republication. Um, so you have to go over the whole process, and I took the opportunity to do a lot of editing on both books.
Okay.
They had, as I mentioned, they had not been given much in-depth editing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over them several times and I came out with revised copies that I intend to republish.
Oh, well, we're really looking forward to that. And well done for your perseverance, because I can imagine, it's quite disheartening. It can be quite disheartening. So
Yeah.
let me just ask about the poetry. You haven't really returned to poetry. Um, do you find writing poetry is completely different from, obviously it is different, but what do you find with writing poetry that you didn't get with writing fiction and non-fiction?
Poetry, I think, requires a lot more emotional engagement. You, it's like tearing your soul apart. And I mean, you have poetry which is of different kinds. Um, you have light poetry,
Mm-hmm.
uh, humorous rhyme or whatever. But you have some poems that, when you get into them, they seem to come from deep within you, and that requires a lot more, um, a lot more. It draws a lot more emotionally from you than the other type of poetry. So I find writing prose um, maybe more of a discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Writing poetry, which seems to require a lot more, um, if you like, this inspiration. I hate to use the word inspiration because you require inspiration for nearly everything. But
Mm-hmm.
you feel more coming out of you writing poetry than you do experience writing prose.
Yeah, I
Um,
can understand what you mean. Yes.
yeah. To find the right expression, for instance, you have to examine yourself a lot more
Yeah.
than you would in writing a simple sentence of prose. Um, but I haven't done too much in poetry. Uh, but when I do, um, it takes a lot more to write one single poem than it would to write maybe a chapter of a book.
Yeah, people, it's deceptive, isn't it? People look at the end results of like 10 lines of poetry and they might not appreciate how much went into writing those 10 lines.
It
Yeah.
takes
Mhm.
a lot more out
Yeah.
of you. Even your choice of word. I mean, you have to go sometimes just writing a couple stanzas. Um, you go over it and you say to yourself, it doesn't have the sound that I want. It doesn't have the
Yeah.
rhythm that I want. And you seek in every way to twist it around and see whether you can get exactly what you want. I think um, a poem, one of the poets, I forgot which one it was, said poetry is more rhythm and sound than words. It's not just words.
Yeah, that's true.
For rhythm and sound. And if you don't get that rhythm and sound, you don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're coming to the kind of end. We've taken a lot of your time, so I just have a couple more questions because it's been so interesting talking to you, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So I just wanted to ask a couple more questions. We talked about some of the disadvantage of being a writer based here on an island. Are there any advantages you find that being a writer in Dominica, because so many writers from the Caribbean have achieved their success by going away, by leaving the islands, either going to UK, Canada, America, and we're writing from this place. Are there any advantages you see from writing from this
Yeah.
island?
I remember many years ago standing on the shores of Scott's Head with
Mm-hmm.
Ian. Ian Carew,
Oh, Yankaru?
who was visiting Dominica at the time.
Okay.
And he looked around and he said, "Look at this. This is drama. This is theater."
Mm-hmm.
Because he made that comment because this small community, people were so close together and relaxed, and there was a sense of togetherness
Mm-hmm.
um, that he couldn't help, feeling that um, there was some drama in there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he recognized from the expressions that they used, the kind of language that they spoke to each other. And I think this is one of the things about living in a small island or a small community. You get to observe a lot
Mm-hmm.
more on a very personal and individual level. Um, the Jamaicans have the saying, the yard, you
Mm-hmm.
get the yard feeling.
Yeah.
And it can be, it can stir a lot in you. You get to observe characters a lot more. You get closer to people and closer to situations than you would in a larger society. That is one of the
Okay.
things that I thought that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That when, for instance, when Selvon writes about a bar in Trinidad,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually identify with the characters as he did identify with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that is one of the advantages that I thought living in a place like Dominica. Um, you are closer to nature, closer to people, closer to community,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
closer to events. Um,
Yeah.
what you
So
write
yeah,
becomes for you more authentic.
I see. I see. Because you're
Um,
right. You're
I'm
right in the heart of it.
writing at a distance.
Okay. So let me just ask you, as hearing the technology ringing and different things, we're using technology now. There's another one of the live debates that we're hoping to have during the festival is about the use of AI software, and whether you had any feelings about that. Do you think that AI software is going to make writers obsolete? Do you think it's going to make writers more creative? Do you have any views about the use of AI software in the writing world?
I haven't thought much about it, although my son and I discussed AI um, as a tool, as a technology.
Mm-hmm.
But um, many publishers have become wary about AI. In fact, some publishers have openly said they will not accept books written with AI.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, I'm not sure what is the rationale for saying this, but for my own limited knowledge of the subject, you- as as someone who has attempted to write of about characters and events and situations, I doubt whether AI as a tool can can give you that emotional feeling that a
Mm-hmm.
writer would. Um,
Okay.
it will certainly put together up some data to get in whatever form you want, but where a writer can evoke feelings of love, feelings of hate, feelings of despair, I don't think that AI will quite give it to you in the same way.
Okay. Okay. And my final question, um, you know, is there anything that you would want to say to any of our writers, aspiring young writers or older writers who are just starting on their journey of writing and the whole journey of writing to publishing? Is there anything, any advice or any words of wisdom you would like to give to them at all?
Well, my advice would be I have to go back to Chimamanda Adichie again and say, speak with your voice, speak with the voice of your people, speak with what is around you, and not allow yourself to be drawn in to repeat what is being said from external environments. There's enough that you can say about your people and yourself to portray their self-respect, their nobility, because what you might get, what we often get from outside, is something which denigrates the character of people. So I think that's a primary function, a primary obligation of young writers. Look to speak with the voice of their people,
Okay.
and not repeat what is being given in textbooks or history books or official papers or whatever it is, especially when it comes from outside.
Oh, I love that. That's a great way to end the conversation. Well, Alick, I want to just thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to the republishing of your books, and you've been such an inspiration for such a long time, and such a stalwart and supporter of our local writers. So thank you, and thank you, viewers who are watching the Write-Tukubuli Literary Festival. Thank you so much for your time. Keep checking the YouTube channel. Keep using the hashtags Write-Tukubuli and Write-Tukubuli 2025 on your social media pages. And yes, thank you.
Thank you.